All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Susan Winchester. Susan, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I am delighted to be here.
I'll tell you, I am really looking forward to this. And I want to start off by giving a shout out to Celine DaCosta because she was the one who introduced us. And without her, Susan, we might have never even met.
You're
And
probably right. Yeah, no, she's amazing. I'm very grateful that she introduced us. You and I have had a lot of fun getting to know each other.
Yes, and we've already got to have a conversation and get to know each other before we did the interview here, before we're setting to do the interview, and I have really been looking forward to this.
Me too.
And so I'm just going to dig right in, and the first thing I'll do, I'll just ask you a nice simple question to start with.
Okay, good.
What do you do, Susan, and who do you serve?
What I do is I have a consulting practice and executive coaching practice. I
Okay.
have my own, it's my own LLC. I've had the LLC for many years. I started it when I wrote my book and had it published back in the early 2020s. And now, post corporate, I was in corporate for many, many years. I get the pleasure and privilege of working with clients I know. Many of the people that come to me are people I love, admire, respect, and have worked with and for. And I love my work. I love it. And
Yeah.
so it's part time. I get to do all my other fun things around it, which is just a delight.
Well, good for you. So, what inspires you most about the work and the impact that you get to make, Susan?
Yeah, and the second part of your question of who do I serve is really about the impact. So
Okay.
when I am working with, for example, my executive coaching clients, I serve a lot of clients in big companies, private equity companies, universities, and I am serving the organization and the people in it.
Okay.
And I love that work. Having been the benefactor of 37 years in corporate, I can pretty much go anywhere on any topic. And so I get the pleasure and privilege of doing work I love that I think is meaningful and makes a difference and help support people along their path like I was supported along my path when I was working full time.
Yeah. So how did you get into doing this? And I know you also mentioned this is kind of a part-time thing for you.
It
And
is.
but yeah, how did you make that transition? How did you get into doing this, Susan?
Well, I started my career, it feels like 100 years ago, in HR. I spent my entire 36 and a half years in basically corporate HR, as well as 3 years in management consulting. And I was just very blessed. I had an amazing career. I worked with great people, great companies, Kellogg's, really well-known companies, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Rockwell Automation, and my most recent assignment was with Applied Materials, a Fortune 150 company, semiconductor company in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And so I think the way it was a really pretty effortless transition. I knew at some point I would want to, retire. Retire is not really the right word for what I'm doing, but basically leave my full-time corporate job. I'm very proud that when I was at Applied, I had the opportunity to hire my successor. She and I worked together for several years. I committed to her that I would help teach her as much as I could how to be the head of HR for a big company. Because when I first took my first chief HR officer role at Rockwell, I didn't really even know how to spell that. I was kind of clueless. And if I hadn't had some amazing mentors like Mara Swan, a colleague of mine in the corporate HR world, and Tracy Kehoe and some others, I'm not sure I would have survived. And so it was such a smooth transition. It was the CEO said it was the best succession he'd ever experienced. I
Wow.
made my announcement. I had turned 60. It just was the right time. My husband had retired a few years before me. And so I went to my CEO in January of last year and said, I have loved working for you. You've made a huge positive impact on my life personally and professionally. And Joji's ready. And so it was literally a 2 month transition. That's how good it was.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I really wanted to go and enjoy my life. And when you're working in corporate, and people know this, it's intense, it's demanding, it's just the nature of the work. And I wanted to make sure that I was making time to go and celebrate life, celebrate my family and my friends and my animals and the things I love to do which, often I was working. And I made that decision. I retired in March of last year. And like I said, I'd already had an LLC practice started, and I was doing some work with Celine DaCosta, who we're going to talk more about. I was doing one of her, it was actually a 2-day VIP day in beautiful Ibiza, Spain. And she had me doing a meditation, a breathing meditation, which always makes me laugh because I always say I can't breathe. Breathing in those meditations for 90 minutes, it feels, it always I can get it done. But there was a moment in the meditation, and she was guiding the whole experience where it became very clear to me. It was like I was at a crossroads. There was a left path and a right path.
Okay.
And I am very fortunate to have two amazing sons. They're grown. My youngest son, his face popped up in my meditation. And I remember he had this big smile on his face. And it was very clear that if I went to the left path, which was, like a full-time digital business with all the social media marketing for my book and my courses, et cetera, which I've been doing for years and found heavy and burdensome. Or I could go down the right path, which was, why don't you start your own practice, do the work you love to do with people you really enjoy working with? And that's how I evolved my business model about a year, almost 2 years ago now,
Wow.
to really focus in on consulting in some key areas I love to do, and more importantly, the executive coaching work, which I found to be my true calling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I got to where I am today.
Yeah. Wow. There is a lot of alignment between you and I, Susan.
Yeah,
I do not have a single client that is not a friend first,
yep.
and it's not like I serve hundreds of clients or nothing, but I would not bring on a client if I would not invite them into my home for dinner with my family and stuff. And in fact, many of them I have had in my home,
I love
and that's just how I look at it. And it's like, so then as far as business, I'm just doing cool stuff with my friends.
that. That's exactly right. That's the way to work because it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I became really clear after this work with Celine, I basically said to God, these are the people I want to work with. And literally within 2 weeks, three of the people I knew from different roles that I'd been in called to say, "Hey, are you doing anything in this area?" And one of my favorite leaders called and said, "Hey, I heard you just retired. Will you come and work with my new leadership team and me?" Which has turned into just a wonderful assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's uplifting.
Yeah.
I'm in my beautiful office. I have my German Shepherds close by. I mean, it couldn't get much better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, and we don't have to name names here or anything, but what's a result that you've helped a client get that you're just incredibly proud of, Susan?
Well, I mean, I have amazing clients, so I really credit them for doing the work.
Mhm.
And I just received the most touching testimonial from one of my clients. And she basically said that she thinks about herself totally differently now through the coaching work. And what I really focus on is helping, and I've been focusing on this for myself too, by the way, is helping people become more conscious and aware of how they are experiencing their workplaces or their lives, and then helping them to realize how to then manage how they're responding. And what I teach in my book is helping people understand how much our past influences how we experience our workplace and our daily lives, both in terms of how we think about ourselves and others, and also how we then respond to and behave in relationship to those relationships.
Yeah.
And so the feedback, just recently from this one client was really talking about how much she feels like she's evolved from, um, rather than externalizing and sort of staying in a place of not really owning her own experience, but really becoming aware of how much she's stepping into her leadership and showing up differently in relationships, managing relationships completely differently. And so, and that's leadership work. She and I worked together for a year. And I mean, I wish I had it in front of me to read it because it was just very touching that and she copied her manager, her leader, who brought me in to work with many of the members of his team.
Okay.
So I think a lot of it is about helping people shift how they experience the workplace, how they're experiencing their relationship with themselves.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then really, and again, I give credit to Celine in a lot of respects, helping people realize that the conflict we deal with at work is oftentimes related to unresolved issues that we have ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it's really breaking through that. It's what I call discovering the conscious healing career path rather than staying on the unconscious wounded career path, which is a miserable place.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about leadership capability. It's really about helping people to free up the baggage that they carry that drags them down, that
Mhm.
distracts them, that leads to anxiety and overthinking and ruminating. And ultimately, it's about performance optimization for themselves as well as their organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set here and people know a little bit about who you are and what you're all about, I want to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to start focusing on the relationship side of our conversation. So I'll start by asking you, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships, Susan.
Yeah. So, there are two people that really come to mind. And the
Okay.
first one, and you know her, is Celine DaCosta.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I first met Celine because my co-author Martha Finney and I, who wrote a book called Healing at Work, that we're incredibly proud of. I basically teach people how to use workplace conflict as a laboratory for emotional healing. We had finished the book. I had been writing it on my own from 2004 until 2017. So it was a long journey to get to my first manuscript.
Hmm.
Martha and I reconnected. She's a brilliant writer, and we co-wrote the book. And it took us another 2.5 years. And so when it was ready, the manuscript was ready to go to the publisher. I said to Martha, I can't do it. I cannot publish this book. I broke down because I was afraid. I was afraid, and the book the book is a set of stories about not only my life but my sister's experiences as well as many corporate experiences that I had. And
Okay.
what I was worried about was being judged professionally for being as open and forthright as I am in the book. I
Hmm.
was also afraid of being judged by my employer because in the book I talk a lot about how 30 years of my 36 years of career, my success was fueled by my underlying belief that I wasn't good enough. And that's a pretty negative place to be because you beat yourself up all the time.
Yeah.
You constantly rethink what you did or didn't do, what you said, what you didn't say. And I didn't know how to manage my nervous system back then. So Chardonnay and I were very good friends for way too many years. And so I was really stuck in my ability to think about publishing this book. And Martha did not know Celine, but she saw an ad that Celine had on, I think it was a New Year's Day special for her 90-minute story clarity intensive. And Martha did a little research on her and said she's working with some really good people that we respect. I think you should hire her to meet with you. And so I said, all right, well, okay. I didn't figure there was anything to lose. So I did Celine's 90-minute story clarity intensive. And I don't know how she did it, but in 90 minutes, through her amazing capability, she helped me discover that my purpose for writing the book, my why, was way bigger than my fear.
Mhm.
And I remember that moment where it was that moment of, oh, you're right. Because what I wanted to do with the book is I wanted to wake people up that they didn't have to live the kind of career that I led, even though it came with a lot of success, it came with a lot of pain. And once I had that clarity, I mean, it was really a story clarity intensive. It worked. I was very impressed because the very first interaction with Celine was literally only 90 minutes. And as a result of that, I became a book author, which was a really big deal, especially given how many years I'd spent trying to
Yeah.
write it.
Right.
And the book became a symbol of my purpose in life, which I discovered years ago in a very powerful leadership development seminar called Pathways to Successful Living. That my purpose is to teach self acceptance to create a more joyful world. And that's what healing at work is all about. It's helping people transform the workplace rather than an origin of stress and pain to a laboratory for healing and for discovering who we really are. And so that was my first introduction to Celine, was like, well, okay, wow, this woman's good. Her insights, her clarity, her ability to go really deep, really fast was very impressive. And that led to, I think, I can't remember how many coaching contracts I've done with Celine, because Celine is still my coach. I've worked with her now, it's got to be going on 6 years.
Wow, that's
And
a extended
yeah,
relationship for sure.
yeah, I mean, she is incredibly gifted. And I have worked with gifted coaches in the past, so
Mhm.
it wasn't like I had never experienced an outstanding coach. I definitely had had the privilege of that experience. But what was so impactful about Celine is that with each coaching container that I would sign on to, we'd have our calls on a certain cadence. And each time before the call, I'd have to complete an accountability form. I didn't have to, but it was optional. But I like to keep track of what I was doing and what I said I was going to do, and am I doing it? And what she was able to do was, it was almost like she was like, a mile ahead of me. She had this amount of knowledge and wisdom, as she still does. She's always evolving, she's always learning, that as I was in my corporate role, which is when I first met her, I I don't know what I would have done without her. you know? Because what she taught me was how to understand basically my nervous system and how it was programmed to be on high alert all the time, state of hypervigilance, a lot of worry and fear, and how to start unwiring some of that the patterns that I learned when I was little. And obviously the corporate world is intense, it's complex, a lot of complex personalities that we all navigate, and she really taught me skills and frameworks that help me better manage myself in relationship to other people. It wasn't about changing other people. It was more about becoming aware about why I get upset in certain situations, how that's a very often deep rooted programming that I learned when I was little, and then how to start evolving that so that you don't have that same, what she called originally an energetic hook, where I was constantly hooking into angry people. That's a familiar personality. So I kept trying to resolve an unmet need that I had when I was little in relationship to my dad, and I was completely unaware of it.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I could go on and on about all the things I've learned from Celine, but she was instrumental to my work, my performance at my last company for sure.
Yeah.
And then, once I retired, I, was building up my own business. She's got her own business. She's been doing the work that she does for many years with clients all over the world. And so the coaching session started to shift to, how do I become better at what I'm doing to support people in their organizations?
Okay.
And so she would, I mean, I was trying to do an inventory earlier of all the things that I've learned from her. We don't have a 3-hour podcast, I don't think, but there are just so many ways that I have felt supported in doing my work. In other words, I'm not dependent on her, but I learn from her. And
Mhm.
she's always providing learning tools and resources to enable me to become better at managing myself and becoming more aware. So I mean, that's just a very small piece of the work that Selena has helped me with.
Yeah.
I mean, she's really
Yeah.
helped me with my own little business model
Hmm.
and helped me release a lot of, the body keeps a score with pain and trauma. Through the VIP sessions, I've done many of those because they're so powerful and so impactful. They're life changing. They are life changing.
Yeah.
Letting go of old emotional trauma related to things that happened when I was little, and really feeling like it's gone, like I've resolved that.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
I mean, I'll never forget one session with her. She just said, just very sweetly, "Do you realize you're addicted to anxiety?" I'm like, at first it felt like a slap in the face. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I like the high of anxiety. And so, I mean, that was, I don't know, she just sees things that
Mhm.
I was unaware of. And she has such a beautiful, loving um, energy. I never feel judged. I always feel supported. I can reach out to her between our coaching sessions. And I just think she's magical. I don't know what else to say about her. You know, you've met her. She's
Yeah.
very, very special.
Yeah. And you have to have a really amazing relationship with someone to for them to be able to ask you a question like that, and then for you to just be able to receive that and
Hmm.
realize that, like, wow, not only is she right, but man, I'm really grateful to her for
Uh-huh.
pointing that out because I didn't realize that.
Well, yeah,
And
I mean, and that's just one example of probably a million.
yeah.
Another thing that she really helped me with that was so massively important was my relationship with time. And, in the world of work, in the corporate world, there's never enough time. You always feel like you're running. You rarely feel like you're getting the sleep you need. For me, time felt like a prison. Like, I got to keep running. I got to keep running. And my perfectionism, which wasn't helping, was, you got to make everybody you work with feel like they're the most important person in the world. And so it was, I was just killing myself with my relationship with time. And I remember she introduced me to an amazing book by a guy named Oliver Burkeman, Burkman, a British guy, I think, who wrote the book 4,000 Weeks.
Okay.
And that book changed my life because the essence of the book, he does a lot in the book. It's so good. I've listened to it a book and a half. I've read it. It's really good. But the essence of his work is from the time you're born to if you live to be age 80, there are only 4,000 weeks in your life. Only 4,000. And it sure puts a perspective on it. Like I'm 62, I don't have 4,000 weeks anymore. I hope I have 1,000 or more. But it started to orient me about the precious nature of time and starting to make sure that I'm doing things that are aligned to how I want to spend however many weeks I have on this earth before the next big adventure. And, even on my to-do note, like I always have a little to-do list, like many of us do. I have highlighted the top 4,000 weeks because it keeps me focused on, do I really need to do this? Am I spending my time and my energy in a way that's aligned to how I want to live my life, the quality of life I want to live? And it's so funny because my husband, who's never read the book, but has heard me talk about 4,000 weeks many times, we were in North Carolina visiting family. And he said, we've been down here 3 times over the last 3 years. If you want to see us next time, you got to come and see us because we're on a 1,000 week program. He's starting to quote 1,000 weeks to everybody. And I love it because it really orients you to how much time we waste.
Yeah.
We're not being intentional about the quality of how we're expending our time. And coincidentally, another great leader, a man named Peter Bregman, consultant and coach, also a good friend, listening to one of his books called Leading with Emotional Courage. And in it, he talks about how we're just not thoughtful enough about the time that we have and how we're spending it and how much time we actually waste worrying about things. Just all these things align. But it was really Celine that helped me shift that relationship from time as a prison to time as an opportunity for creating memorable moments with my family and friends and doing the things that I love to do.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
that's just another example of how much she's impacted my life.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't realize this until you just brought it up. And that example right there, I live in Washington State up north of Seattle, and we have family down in Arizona, and family and friends. And they're really spaced out, down there.
Of
And,
course.
and we don't like trying to have to go all over and visit everybody. And so what we always do is we just rent a big Airbnb with a pool and all that kind of stuff. And we just tell everybody, hey, we're coming into town on these days. Come visit us. Come hang out.
I
And
love that.
everybody does. Everybody comes over, and we got great food and everything. And it's just nice and
Great.
easy. We don't got to running all over the place.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're unconsciously practicing the 4,000 week principles,
Yes. Yeah.
being more intentional about where you spend your time and how you expend your energy, to
Yeah.
use Peter's words.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and so as I become more aware of time as I get older, I want high quality experiences with friends and family
Yeah.
and my animals. And so I feel full rather than it'd be easy for me to work all the time because I love the work that I do. But that context, that perspective was a huge game changer for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on. I can, the most recent book she recommended I read, which of course I listen to her read every book she recommends because it's life changing, was a book called Die with Zero.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember the author's name because I literally just finished it. But in the book, he really changed the way I think about money and my relationship with money and wealth. And, he really challenges the reader to think about rather than continuing to try to build your portfolio, your financial portfolio, you should be thinking about how do I spend my money so I'm left with zero because you want to enjoy it. And so, for example, rather than waiting till you die where your kids get the inheritance, why don't you give them some of the inheritance now? Because this whole point is that the utility of money declines as you age. My sons are fairly young. And so to be able to experience sharing that with them while I'm still alive is, it's exciting to me. The same thing with charity is like, why are you waiting to do an inheritance when you die? Why don't you give to charity now? Give more
Yeah.
because they can do more with it now.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's just different ways of thinking about how we experience life. Um, Another really great book that we talked a lot about it's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. And it really gets at looking at the shadow parts of ourselves and really starting to explore those shadow parts, understand those rather than avoiding them, and integrating them into who you are as an individual. And it was just a powerful set of exercises that were offered in the book. But again, because Celine is constantly developing herself, she's constantly learning, she's teaching all the time. I get to be the benefactor of that and creating the quality of life that I have is just unbelievable. It's exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really credit Celine and a lot of the principles that she's taught me over the last several years.
Wow. Wow. Well, and you had one other person you wanted to honor, so I want to make sure I don't want to overlook that either.
Of
So,
course, yeah. So the other person is a man named Ken Wright.
okay.
Uh, I met Ken Wright back in the mid 90s when I was working at the Kellogg Company. My boss at the time, Betsy English, who I'm still in connection with, had me go through an assessment process that Ken uses called the Human Synergistics Lifestyles Inventory. And it is the coolest instrument in the whole world, created by a man named Clayton Lafferty. I mean, it's just brilliant. And I remember Ken was so diplomatic and so respectful, but still able to give me feedback I needed to hear. I remember he told me, for example, you score really high on perfectionism. And I'm like, oh, that's good, right? He said, no, actually, it's not good. And probably in about 6 years, it's going to really backfire for you. And I thought, yeah, whatever. Well, 6 years later, it really backfired on me.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
I'm so needy. I needed other people to validate me. And I thought I had to tap dance all the time and be a perfect little, human being in the corporate world. It was annoying. It was people didn't want to be around me. And all my old strategies of people pleasing and perfectionism were actually like pushing people away. And I remember thinking that Ken Wright, boy, he sure had it right.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and he told me a lot of things, but I really respected how he communicated feedback in a very non-judgmental way, in a very way that I absorbed it and I took it in. And what ended up happening was when I left Kellogg's after 12 years and I went to Rockwell, I asked Ken to come in and I wanted to recommend to the leadership team, the executive team, and they all agreed, as well as my leadership team, my HR group, to have them all go through this assessment process because it was
Okay.
so deep and so insightful and so rich compared to most leadership assessments. Most are fairly superficial, not all, but some. But this one was outstanding. And so I got to know Ken really well I was at Rockwell for 11 years in the top HR job. And I really respected his body of knowledge related to leadership. I think he's read every bio or autobiography of significant leaders around the world.
Hmm.
He brings that into his debrief. He helps people relate to the feedback that they're getting. He also introduced me to a body of work that transformed how I think about organizations and people. And that was a body of work that was originated by a man named Dr. Elliot Jacks, a Canadian doctor, who eventually got his PhD in social sciences from Harvard and set out on a path to figure out how do you create organizations that are high performing and full of trust, where the people in the organization feel like they're in roles that they're best suited for, where they understand managerial practices and that they're feeling supported from their leaders. And so Ken taught me some of the things that Dr. Jacks was doing. Another woman working with Dr. Jacks also became a mentor. Her name's Nancy Lee. She's since passed. But Ken was really instrumental in helping me look at the world of talent in organizations through a completely different lens than what I would describe as traditional/conventional HR practices.
Okay.
And as a result of that, when I went from Kellogg's to Rockwell, I just sat back and started thinking about, is everything we're doing as an HR practice helping our organization, not really doing anything, or hurting our organization? And because of the work I'd done with Ken and the assessment work, I realized that a lot of the original work that we did in HR was not helping, in some cases making things worse. And so it changed how I worked with the organizations and business leaders relative to talent decisions, relative to organization design choices. And I think it just helped me make a bigger difference with the organizations I was working with.
Yeah.
I know my CEO at my last company, when I shared with him one of the models that I actually adapted from the original work, when he heard me describe it in the interview, I think that's what nailed the interview, because he was like, that's fantastic. And it resonates. And I can teach any organization, any group. I've done it. It's such an elegant, beautiful model. The suitability model, I call it, is how do you assess people for suitability, for promotion, selection, development, succession, whatever the decision is. And I've worked with Ken. I mean, he and I worked with hundreds of leaders at Rockwell. He and I then worked with many leaders at my last company, Applied Materials. And when I became a consultant, and one of my first clients, one of my favorite leaders, called and said, I want you to work with my leadership team. Ken and I did a major project for this organization with Human Synergistics that then led to coaching contracts, which was wonderful. And Ken and I are very good friends. We've been friends for 30 years. And I consider him a colleague, an associate, but a brilliant man who's helped me really think differently about my role as an HR practitioner. Yeah. I really credit a lot of that work to making significant differences in the companies I've had the privilege of working for.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
This has been really phenomenal. I mean, what all the stuff that you have shared. I mean, what a powerful testament right there to the power of right relationships.
I love that. You are so right. I would not be who I am with instrumental people like Celine and Ken.
Yeah.
And I've been very blessed by a lot of very special people, mentors, advisors, coaches that have made a significant difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I was. I had so many issues. I'm surprised that I had that much help, but it really made a difference. And I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful for those important relationships. I love the work you're doing with the relational connections and how significantly one person can change the entire trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
I just think it's very cool. I can't even imagine all the stories that you've heard.
I'll tell you, that is one thing, hosting this podcast, and what's interesting is, there used to be a time in my life, not that long ago. I mean, my gosh, I remember launching this little program I was doing back in 2020, right after COVID hit. And I was inviting some entrepreneur friends of mine into it. And there was this one guy in particular that I was kind of thinking that, like, and I was talking with a friend of mine. And I was like, and I was like, I'm thinking about inviting Richard, but he's already really successful at this and this, and I just don't know. And my friend just says to me, well, she's Kev, it sounds like you made up his mind for him. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. I was like, I'll at least give him the opportunity to make up his own mind.
That's good. That was very good observation. That's funny. Oh my God.
And
it was probably wonderful, wasn't it?
It was. And when I told him about it, he's like, Kev, that sounds amazing. Yes, I'd love to be a part of that. And I'm like, wow. And on one hand, I was like, wow, look who's being a part of this. On the other hand, I'm like, okay, God, please let this be valuable for him. And but one thing I have definitely learned over these years, and especially, hosting this podcast, because we've released 340 plus episodes of this.
Amazing. I
So
just
that
wrote
is
that.
340 conversations like this that I've
Hmm.
got to have with some pretty amazing entrepreneurs. I mean, entrepreneurs running businesses, I don't know, anywhere from 500,000 on up to 750 million and everything in between.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and what I've really come to realize is that it doesn't matter how successful somebody is. It doesn't matter how great things might look from the outside looking in. Every single one of us are doing the best we can with what we've got.
I agree. Yep. That's
All of
beautiful.
us are. And
Yep.
and at every single level, it doesn't matter. And so, when you have the opportunity to just have these kind of conversations with such amazing entrepreneurs and come to that discovery, man, it takes this, because like now it's like, wow, you know what, I really am valuable to the right people.
Hmm.
And I really can help them. And yes, I got my idiosyncrasies too. Absolutely. We all do. But that does not
About
negate
mine.
the value.
I said I wrote a whole book about mine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. That's fantastic. I love it. I love the work you're doing because it does the connecting to different people literally can change lives, and that's what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. Well, for anybody that might be listening to this and going, just man, Kevin, I really love Susan. I love who she is. I love how she shows up. They've shared some of the stuff that they've listened to some of the stuff that you've shared. And maybe they're even thinking, like, man, I'd like to find out more about her. And she mentioned her book and stuff. And like any websites, any resources we can share with folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably one of the best sites is my website, susanwinchester.com. I
Okay.
have detailed in there all the different things that I love teaching and talking about. And then, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. I've got a long name on LinkedIn, Susan J. Schmidt Winchester.
Okay.
Schmidt is SHMITT, but people can find me. Those are the two best places.
Okay. Perfect. I'll make sure we include those links with the show notes and stuff. Is
That's
there
great.
any
Thank
Yeah, you bet. Is there any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
you. I just feel incredibly grateful for every single thing that has happened to me, all the painful, what I call dark storms in my life, but then also the amazing people that have been there to help me through them and to help teach me and help me continue to evolve me. Sort of, I'm the CEO of me. And again, just one more shout out to Celine. One of the things that she does as a part of the work, and I know she does this, I'm sure, with all of her clients, is she's always creating and maintaining a bigger vision for who I am than I am.
Mhm.
And so there's that amazing, gentle guidance for becoming bigger in my life than I even imagine is possible. And I feel incredibly grateful. I have been doing my gratitude journals. I guess I set it aside. I think I'm on 26 years of gratitude journals every single day, five
Wow.
things I'm grateful
Wow.
for. And I sometimes just want to cry because of the amazing people that have been in my life and are in my life that, to your point, have shaped who we are.
Yeah.
So I guess gratitude is where I'm feeling right now. It's just a gratitude for our connection and introduction, and gratitude for just feeling like a very blessed person. And I want to be responsible with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today and just to share from your heart. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, and I am so excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other folks. So thank you so
Thank you.
much, Susan.
Well, it has been an absolute delight. I told you I got up early this morning at 3:45. I was running low on energy at 4 today, and I saw your face, and I just like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. You have the ability to create energy, and I'm sure this is how the people that know you experience you. It's a gift to be able to uplift people. even though they may be exhausted or distracted or whatever. So I just want to really say thank you to you for including me in your podcast.
Well, you are so welcome. You are so welcome.